right, welcome. Today we're diving into a really powerful way of looking at our complex world. It's all about a new path, and it starts by completely rethinking what it means to be responsible. The idea here is that how we see our own reality, well, that can actually change everything. It's a feeling I think we all get, right? You look at these massive global issues, and it's so easy to feel completely helpless. You feel like these problems are just too big, too dug in to ever really be solved. But what if the whole reason we're stuck isn't nearly as complicated as it seems? What if the key, the actual solution, comes down to how we define just one single everyday word? That's the core idea we're going to unpack today. So let's start this journey by kind of reframing the whole problem. What if we're not actually dealing with a bunch of separate crises? What if it's all just one big underlying crisis, a crisis of responsibility? And here's why we get stuck, according to this way of thinking. In most of these big conflicts, the people involved, they're only looking at one tiny piece of a much bigger puzzle. They're working with a totally incomplete idea of what being responsible even means. Yeah, and this is where you can really see that imbalance. The way we usually think about responsibility, it's all about control. My personal choices, my rights. But we often completely forget about the other super crucial parts, being accountable for what we do, and our basic duty to think about how our actions are going to affect other people. Okay, so if the way we normally think about it is incomplete, what does the full picture actually look like? Well, this framework lays out a much deeper, more complete definition. So at its very core, responsibility isn't just one thing. It's actually a three-part concept. Think of it like a blend of owning our actions, being accountable for what happens next, and having a duty to think about our impact on everyone else. And this is really the key takeaway. You have to see these as three essential pillars that have to stand together. So, ownership, that's about being in control. Accountability, that means you accept the consequences, good or bad. And duty, that's the moral piece, the part that says you have to think beyond just yourself. Real responsibility, according to this view, needs all three of those working in harmony. All right, so getting a handle on this new definition of responsibility, that's step one. But to really put it into practice, we've got to go even deeper. We have to start searching for these fundamental principles that seem to govern life itself. And the logic here is, wow, it's pretty profound. It's suggesting that the crises we see out in the world, they're not just random bad luck. They are the direct result, the actual physical manifestation of us humans violating some of these core principles of how life works. So where do you even start looking for principles like that? Well, we're pointed towards two ancient sources of knowledge, the world's sacred books and the collective wisdom of different cultures from all over the globe. That time-tested wisdom that gives us ideas like reciprocity, compassion, or even karma. And to really get what these principles are like, think about them like scientific laws, like gravity. They're described as absolute and irrefutable. They exist and they have an effect whether you believe in them or not. They just operate, completely separate from our personal opinions. And look, let's be real here. This is not an easy thing to do. Accepting that there are absolutes like this is a huge challenge for most of us today. It takes a really open, unbiased mind. You have to be willing to just sit with it and see beyond your own built-in ideas. Which brings us to the final stage of this whole journey. And it's so important to understand this isn't some quick fix. Not at all. This is a long, slow process. This is the slow path to wisdom. And wow, this timeline really puts the scale of that journey into perspective, doesn't it? Just grasping the principles, that can take years. Gaining real insight and developing a true awareness of cause and effect, we're talking decades. And actually attaining what you might call real wisdom, that could be the work of centuries. This is absolutely a path of patience. So after all that, after that incredibly long journey, where do you end up? Well, the destination is arriving at this profound personal realization. It's that moment you can honestly, with your whole being, say, indeed, I am my brother's keeper, and that I am also the custodian of my environment. Okay, I know what you're thinking. That journey sounds impossibly long, right? But here is the most critical point of all. While that ultimate goal might be way off in the distance, the change itself, that begins the second you take that first step. That's right. The simple act of choosing to adopt this bigger three-part sense of responsibility, it has an immediate effect. You don't have to wait years or decades to change your attitude. That fundamental shift in how you see the world and your place in it, that can happen right now. So what does that change actually look like in the real world? Well, it shows up in very real, very tangible ways. You might find yourself looking at your neighbor's situation with a lot more sympathy. You might feel this honest, real desire to work together, and you start tackling problems with the goal of finding solutions that actually work for everyone in a spirit of, genuine fraternity. And so, this all leaves us with the next huge question on this path. We've redefined responsibility, we understand the journey is long, but what exactly are those governing principles we need to learn to act responsibly? Well, that is the search that lies ahead. Thanks for joining me for this exploration.